Millions of circles stamped across Namibia's desert floor. Locals blame one thing, a dragon. They'll tell you it's breathing under the sand, scorching the earth from below. In this video, what's actually underneath these circles, and why the leading scientific theories still can't agree. Fly over the Namib, and the circles stretch to the horizon in every direction, running for close to 1,500 miles, too many to count one by one, scattered like a pattern someone stamped from above. On the ground, they're stranger still. Walk into one, and the grass just stops. Not thinning, stopping in a line clean enough to look drawn. For the Himba people of northern Namibia and southern Angola, these circles were never a mystery waiting on science. They were already explained, and the explanation isn't a shrug, it's a system. The oldest version traces the circles to Mukuru, the Himba's founding ancestor. The bare patches are his footprints, left when gods and people still shared the same ground. A second version is more violent, a dragon, coiled somewhere beneath the sand, breathing something poisonous and hot enough to scorch a perfect ring into the surface each time it exhales. A third, spirits or fairies, dancing at night in circles, leaving the earth bare wherever their feet touch down. Look at what each story is actually built to explain, and the logic stops feeling arbitrary. A footprint is round, bounded, and impossible to argue with, exactly what these patches look like from above. A dragon's breath accounts for the burn. The ground inside isn't just empty, it's the kind of empty that looks cauterized. And a dance floor explains the one detail all three stories share without saying so directly. Whatever caused this, it happened at night, out of sight, leaving only the mark behind by morning. Namibia's own desert peoples call this land the place God made in anger. A folklore of gods, dragons, and spirits isn't decoration on top of that idea. It's the same idea, worked out in different shapes. Of the three, the dragon is the one that travels. It's the version tour guides tell most often, the one repeated in nearly every account of this place. Not because it's more official than the others, but because it's the one detail everyone who hears it remembers. And the Himba don't just tell these stories, they use the circles. Grass grows thick and tall right at the ring's edge, better grazing than the open desert offers, so herders fence off the border with sticks and corral young cattle inside overnight, safe from predators. Whatever is really down there, the Himba built their lives around it centuries ago. Science took a lot longer to even ask the question, and once it did, it wouldn't agree on an answer for the next 50 years. European and American researchers didn't reach the Namib until the 1970s, and once they started asking their own version of the same question, they got it wrong for decades before anyone got it right. Poison gas seeping from underground was an early guess, abandoned once no gas was ever found. Toxic euphorbia bushes, thought to poison the soil where they'd once grown, was another, except circles kept appearing in places that had never had euphorbias at all. Ants took a turn as suspects too. None of it held. By the early 2000s, the guessing had narrowed to two real camps, and unlike the discarded theories before them, both were backed by actual field data, actual published research, and actual scientists willing to spend years in the desert defending their case. That's where this stops being folklore versus science and starts being science versus science. In 2013, University of Hamburg biologist Norbert Jürgens published a study in the journal Science built on data he'd been collecting since 2006. Everywhere he found a fairy circle, he also found a specific insect, the sand termite, tunneling underneath it. His theory: the termites deliberately clear the grass roots inside the circle. With nothing left to drink the water, rain that falls on the bare patch sinks straight down and stays there, sealed under a crust of sand, safe from evaporation and safe from competing plants. The termites aren't a side effect of the circle. They're the reason it exists, an underground reservoir, engineered on purpose, that keeps their colony alive through years without rain. A decade later, Jurgens and University of Hamburg soil scientist Alexander Gröngruft went further, publishing a direct rebuttal to the rival camp's theory. Their soil moisture readings, taken every hour since 2008, showed rainwater draining straight downward, not sideways. Water would have to travel sideways, underground, for meters, for the competing theory to work at all. Jurgens and Gröngruft called that physically impossible, given what they'd measured. If they're right, the self-organizing plant theory doesn't just have weaker evidence, it breaks basic soil physics. The rival camp doesn't concede the point. Stefan Getzen, an ecologist at the University of Göttingen, has spent over a decade building the opposite case. No termites required, just grass, competing with itself. It's a reversal even for him. Back in 2000, he co-authored a paper blaming a different species of termite entirely. In 2022, Getzen's team excavated 500 grass plants at 4 different sites, checking specifically for termite damage. The roots, they found, were undamaged, as long or longer than the roots of healthy grass growing right outside the circle. If termites were killing these plants by eating their roots, the roots should show it. They didn't. Getzen's explanation instead: the established grass ringing each circle has deep, mature roots that outcompete anything trying to germinate inside the bare patch, pulling the available water toward the edge before new seedlings can reach it. In a 2024 follow-up with physicist Hezi Yizhak, his team tracked exactly how fast this kills new growth, measuring what they called a death zone in the topsoil, where germinating grass inside the circle dies of thirst within 10 to 20 days of a rainfall, starved by its own neighbors. They called the resulting pattern a form of swarm intelligence. No termite required to draw the boundary, because the plants draw it themselves, fighting for water in the harshest ground on the continent. That 2024 study was framed explicitly as a response to Jurgens and Gröngruft's rebuttal, standing by the physics Jurgens called impossible, and standing by the roots the termite camp says should have been damaged and weren't. 2 labs, each with over a decade of fieldwork behind them, and neither one has backed down an inch. So which one is actually right? This isn't a debate one side is quietly losing. As of the most recent published review from June 2025, researchers examining the whole body of evidence found the self-organizing grass explanation the most internally consistent with what's been measured in the field, while stopping short of ruling termites out entirely. That's the closest thing to a scoreboard this fight currently has, and it's not a final one. And the ground keeps shifting under both camps. A 2025 study out of the University of Richmond looked at something neither side had built into their theory at all: nematodes, microscopic soil worms, and found their populations behave differently inside fairy circles than outside them, in ways that could be feeding back into whichever process is really killing the grass. 50 years in, and the list of things that might matter is still growing, not shrinking. It's not even confined to Namibia. Nearly identical circles show up in Australia's Pilbara Desert, thousands of miles away. And when researchers tested the termite theory out there in 2016, they found no link at all. Whatever's really causing this, it isn't limited to one desert, or even one termite species. Termites that engineer their own water supply, grass that starves its own offspring to survive, worms nobody had thought to count, circles that won't even stay on one continent. Every serious answer this desert has produced just seems to open a door to another question. Maybe it really is termites, patiently building a reservoir no human ever noticed until 2013. Maybe it's grass, quietly starving its own neighbors for a few extra drops in the least forgiving soil on the continent. Maybe, and the researchers who've spent 50 years out there still won't fully rule this out. There's a piece of it nobody's found yet. The Himba never needed the argument settled. To live alongside these circles, graze their cattle at the edge of them, and build their sense of this place around a story that made sense of what they saw. So here's the question worth sitting with, not us answering it for you. Termites, thirsty grass, or something the science still hasn't caught up to? You've seen the evidence both sides are standing on. Which one do you think it actually holds?